Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, and welcome back to you, mate. Are you up and about your footy team this week, or what?
It was a good win. More importantly, it was a cracking game where both teams cracked in. Yep. There was lots of pressure, so it was exciting. Big crowd.
Yeah. But no mention of the fact that we softened them up for you a couple of weeks before, so it made it easy for you.
Well, we've had a month of winning, Bryce. I don't know how much more you need of 4 wins in a row. Go to the break with a little bit of, momentum. But also, Freo up and about, Captain.
Are we not going to Collingwood hour? Is it? You're going to talk about the purple, are you?
Captain Courageous is back, so it's good to have Fifey back, the double Brownlow medalist.
But mate, we shouldn't be talking about AFL today, mate. We should be talking about NRL today. So that's just a little hint as to what we've got in store for you today, and I can assure you it's a cracker. Stick around. But a couple of things before we get there, Ben. Interest rates movement in the last week and a bit. So all I'm going to say to folks is stick around, because you've got a bit to say in what's making property news about interest rates, Ben.
Yeah, probably one of the most important updates I've given in a while, Bryce. Please hang around, because there's some stuff that you need to digest. Because it's important for knowledge. That's all I'll say.
All right, stick around for that, folks. I encourage you to do that. Also, Winter Series starts next week, Ben. We've got some guests lined up, and we're going to dive into planning.
Yep.
What were the decisions you made? Why did you do that? What was your future plans? How did that? We're gonna unpack
property investment planning. Very much looking forward to it, mate. How you build a passive income for life.
Yeah. So summer series is around money, Ben. The winter series this year is about the planning process and the decision making, the psychology behind it. Which is good. So stick around for that for next week. And Ben, I'm just going to say one word. We haven't said this one word for a little while, and I'm just going to plant the seed. But it's a W word. It's not win, but it's webinar. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Just hang in there, Ben.
We got some work to do.
Yeah, well, do you know how you always have to pick your webinars? Well, the Property Couch is going to have a webinar coming up. So just plant the seed. Circle back to you in the next week or two about that.
Okay.
One word webinar. All right, my Mindset Minute theme for today, Ben, is a quote. I've said this a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. I'm a little bit obsessed with this book at the moment because I'm on my second lap. It is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. You put me onto it. I've said that before. And I just love the timeless wisdom. It's got nothing to do with technicality about wealth. It's just wisdom. So if anyone's trying to get the picture that I'm trying to get you to read this book, I am. I want you to read this book. As part of our community, you should understand these concepts. And so here's a quote out of that book, Ben. At a party given by a billionaire on Shelter Island, Kurt Vonnegut informs his pal, Joseph Heller, that their host, the hedge fund manager, had made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his wildly popular novel Catch-22 over its whole history. Heller responds, yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough. I was stunned by the simple eloquence of that word. Stunned for 2 reasons. First, because I've been given so much in my own life. And second, because Joseph Heller couldn't have been more accurate. So for a critical element of our society, including many of the wealthiest and most powerful among us, there seems to be no limit today on what enough entails, Ben. How good is that? If you let that land, no one has a watermark on what enough is. And I love the story in the book, Ben. You may remember this because you've read it too. where he talks about the rookie who's sitting on the baseball in the major league in America, who's on $500,000 for the year. And in anyone's language, that's a lot of money, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with the baseballer that's sitting on the bench in the major league in America is looking to the guy at the front of the bench who's on $5 million a year. All right. So in comparison to that person, they're not a lot. But the person who's sitting on the front of the bench is comparing themselves to one of the world's best investors who might have 10 million a year. And that world's best investor is probably looking to Warren Buffett, who's doing billions a year. So the problem is the comparison game is a game you will never win.
You will not win.
You will never win.
Don't go there.
So just the simplicity of that message is something that I love, the simplicity and the power in it. Do you know how much enough is? So it got me thinking, Ben, in the absence of clarity, you'll never know if you're on track, right? So there are 4 essential number categories you need to know. Number 1, you need to know how much your bills are costing you. Number 2, you need to know how much your living and lifestyle costs you. Number 3, you need to know how much your investment costs you. And number 4, you need to know how much your loan payments cost. Because if you do know those 4 categories of cost, you can actually work out how much is enough, Ben. Simple as that. Because the third one, investment costs, and the fourth one, loan payments, by the time you've retired, should be eliminated if you've done it correct, which will leave you with 1 and 2. And if you know how much 1 and 2 costs you, you'll know how much your lifestyle costs you now. And if you want to put a little bit of extra pepper or sauce or mayo on that, you can put a little bit more on top, Ben. And then all of a sudden you have a number. And then you actually know what I need to have enough, and then what assets I need to have that as enough. And it's as simple as that. So you and I are on a mission to help people understand how much enough is, lifestyle design, and have that planning process, which is why we're doing that in the winter series. So if you need help on that, number 1, get money smarts, or number 2, you can speak to one of our qualified property investment advisors. A bit more on that later, but enough is a really important concept, and we want to drill that in, Ben. Any thoughts, feedback, commentary?
Oh, well, it's so true. I mean, ultimately, we're not a get-rich-quick message. We're not about building mega wealth. We're about people designing their lifestyle. And if they're true to themselves, and, as we'll hear, with Darius's conversation, he's also said some of his best money that he's ever spent has been on experiences. And, and so it's okay to spend on those things because basically they're memories, right? And memories are priceless. So it just goes to show you that, there's the very successful people who work themselves out also and are comfortable in their own skin can basically have harmony in their lifestyle by design. I think that's the message here, and that's enough.
Check out the book, folks. Get the book, read it, listen to it, do what you have to do to digest the timeless wisdom. Hey, Ben just gave you a little hint. We are chatting today with a very, very special guest. Super excited to have this particular person on our podcast, Ben. His name is Darius Boyd. For those people who love NRL, needs no further introduction. But in a second, I do go into a bit more introduction. But let's have a little listen to the conversation you and I recently had with Darius Boyd. All right, Ben, we've got a very special guest today. We are chatting with Darius Boyd. He is a former Australian professional rugby league footballer who played fullback, wing, centre and 5'8" for the Brisbane Broncos in the NRL, and has played for Australia at international level and state of origin for Queensland. Boyd captained the Brisbane Broncos from 2017 to 2019. He also previously played for the St George Illawarra Dragons in 2009 to 2011 and the Newcastle Knights in 2012 to 2014, all under coach Wayne Bennett before switching back to the Broncos in 2015. Boyd has won the 2006 NRL Grand Final with the Broncos and the 2010 NRL Grand Final with the Dragons. He is a Queensland State of Origin player, playing in an era of unprecedented Queensland dominance, and he racked up the second most tries in Maroons history with 17 tries from 28 games, mostly on the wing. Welcome to the Property Couch, Darius.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's an impressive sporting CV there, Darius. And we have a big New South Wales and Queensland audience who would love to probably dive into the sporting side of your accomplishments. But despite all that, we want to lean in on a couple of other things with you today around money, property, and a bit of your backstory. And you've been kind enough to come on and chat with us about that. But we like to start with the early days, Darius. Can you give us a bit of an indication about what it was like to grow up as a young boy for you over the dinner table? Were there conversations that you were having around money?
No, not really. I come from a pretty small family background. Just my mum, my grandmother, uncle, and grandfather. So I was an only child. I never met my father. So it's a pretty small little group, but it's quite a tight-knit little group. My uncle and grandfather actually passed away when I was around 8 and 11 years old. So my family got really, really small, and our dinner table only needed chairs for 3. So it wasn't a lot of, I was so young at that age, so there wasn't a lot of to talk about money and wealth and other things. But it's something that I've probably had to lean on with mentors and role models and learn probably the hard way in some cases as well. But just lean on other people to probably get some of those the key information and knowledge and understanding that you probably need in a lot of different areas, and money and wealth and other things is one of them.
And how did that play out for you? So we know that you played under schoolboys for Australia, and you spent a lot of time in growing up with your grandmother. When did that become a need for you in terms of needing to understand how to think about money and how to organise your finances? Was it something you stumbled into and then realised you needed that mentor, or was it was there a pathway that sort of triggered the need to get more serious about how you were going to look after your affairs?
Yeah, I think the last few years of high school, and I realised that money is hard to come by and didn't have a lot, and even just getting $2 to catch the bus home was not always easy. So, or never come from money, never had a lot of money around our family, and it wasn't until I started playing rugby league at the highest level for the Broncos that getting paid pretty well for an 18-year-old kid, and I had to open up another bank account because I knew that all this money that was coming in, I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't need it either. So I had to open up a separate bank account just to put some of that money in, and then I suppose once you get in that professional environment, the Broncos were great at having some workshops around finance and wealth and different things, and in real estate. I had to get a financial planner to kind of just help me out and probably start to teach me a few things, because like I said, I didn't really understand a lot. I knew I wanted to do something good with my money, but I didn't really know who to turn to or what to do with it. So that was probably the start of my journey.
And when do you think you realised that the household that you were growing up in, that money was not plentiful, and that was it sort of young teenage years where you weren't necessarily able to do some of the things that the other kids in school were getting, or they were getting the Nintendo games and you weren't getting them? When did that sort of become a reality for you, that money was tight in your household?
I think it was just probably my last year of school. I won't say it was super tight where we had nothing. I still got a PlayStation for Christmas and a nice bike for a birthday, things like that. I still got some good things, and but I think I made a national carnival for athletics, and just couldn't afford to go. I think it was in Townsville or something like that. I was from the Gold Coast, so to go there and spend a couple of days accommodation and all that type of thing, those type of things, it was just too hard. So I suppose that's probably when I come across it then. My mum had a bit of a struggle with her mental health and well-being, so she was getting help with that. So that, once I moved out of home with her, that was probably when I really started to realise, trying to get buses and things, and paying for lunches, or like I said before, a couple of bucks to catch the bus home, making sure you had enough money around, just those little types of things. Having to understand it, I probably had to understand having a bank card and a bank account at 15 or 16. I probably had to come across it probably at an earlier age than I was supposed to. But at the same time, I think that was a good thing, because it made me realise and probably grow up a bit quicker than I originally would have.
You were recently featured on Channel 7's SAS Australia program, and as part of the research background for me in preparing for this chat, Darius, you were very transparent and open about a lot of the things there, and talked about living with your grandmother from 15 years of age. So was there any conversation, because that's kind of the transition, I don't know if there was a paper round or whatever you did sort of in your teenage years before you got that first Broncos contract, but did grandma have any money habits that she's instilling in you, or were you observing any habits from your grandmother that you took into later life?
Yeah, I think, she was very frugal with the way she did things, diligent, turning PowerPoints off, and don't have a hot shower for too long, and
Good.
So she's always, things are on sale, you buy 5 of them if they're on sale. So I kind of learned it that way. I used to think it was a bit strange, but when I look back now, I think, and she, she's passed away now, but she had a good life-saving left behind and things like that from what she was able to achieve, and obviously not earning a lot in her day, but had a lot money left over and things like that for herself and retirement, other things. So she did a great job, I think, in that way, and it's something that I've probably later in life I look back and think, that's probably why she did do such a good job, because she really was smart and just particular with the way she did things.
Diligence pays off.
Definitely.
Well, in terms of that transition, right, because for a lot of us listening to this, we don't understand what it's like to be a professional athlete. We've had Matt Strama on the show, and he gave us a little insight into that. But can you tell us that first contract with the Broncos? I'm making assumptions here, but I'm sure it's a significant upgrade from what you were earning as a 17-year-old, and then all of a sudden, an 18-year-old, you're on good money. So, what can you talk to us about the transition? What that did into your mind? It sounds like you've had some really good lessons in frugality in your formative years. Was there any temptations to go and buy toys and all those sorts of things when you had a little more resource?
Yeah, I suppose a little bit of insight, I guess. I was only signed a $20,000 contract, my first contract. So everyone thinks, and I know the game's changed a lot since I debuted in 2006, but 20,000 was a lot for me then because I was on zero before. So 20,000 isn't that much in the scheme of things. But my second year, I signed a decent contract, 6-figure contract, and that was something that I really started to have to really look into. Okay, what am I doing with my money and different things? And talking about toys, Wayne Bennett gave me a lot of clip over the years, not physically, but gave me a bit of a talking to. I bought a car before our first house, and he kind of just shook his head and said, "What are you doing that for? Have you bought a house yet?" And I said, "No." And he gave me a little talking to and kind of set me on a better path, I guess. So that was kind of my first instance into even just, I suppose, when you're a young kid and I didn't have a lot of role models and father figures around, mentors, I probably got a bit excited and wanted to, treat myself and do something nice for myself. I think it was my 21st birthday. I bought myself a new car. And I think later that year I ended up buying myself my first house because obviously, wealth creation in cars. And it's something that I learned the hard way, I guess.
Can I pick up on the Wayne Bennett story? Because obviously we know, Australia-wide, not just in the NRL, but he's a great leader of men, a great team builder, a great focus on his is about getting the best out of yourself and, being the best potential. I think, he's got the 2 books that he's put out into the marketplace, and that sort of tells the story, basically not leaving anything left behind. How did he influence you around your mindset? And what were some of the sort of lessons that you've picked up and adopted as part of, getting mentored from a high performance point of view, but just in terms of how you set up yourself in the values that you build for yourself and your life and your family?
Yeah, I think he's just really big on basics. He obviously cares for his players, like you said, a man manager, man motivator. But I think he's just big on basics. When he talks about football, he's really talking about life. And I got a lot of his quotes or valuable lessons from some of his speeches before a game or at training. It was around what we do on the football field, but doing that on the football field, it really relates to life as well. And it's about don't compromise your standards. It's about values, your beliefs. Don't make promises, to yourself if you're going to break them. Discipline. Being on time, punctual. Dress appropriately. Just so many little things around the basics that set you up for not just you transition the career you're in, but life after and other job and opportunities as well. And I think that's what he tries to do ultimately is that he has young men coming into these facilities as rugby league players. He wants them to be good football players. He wants them to become really good young men and have families and kids and leave the game probably with their house paid off, or leave the game in a really good space so they can tackle whatever comes next as well.
Is that a big thing? Because I know Kevin Sheedy in the AFL system said the same thing to Matthew Lloyd, that you should definitely make it an aim to leave your career with your house fully paid off. And you've just sort of mentioned Wayne Bennett the same. Did you find that consistent across a lot of the coaches that you dealt with, or was that something that was more specific to some of the guys that have been around for a while with a bit more wisdom?
Yeah, well, I come across a few coaches. I'm particularly more so in the rep environment. I never really had Wayne as my club coach, which You spend 5-6 days, a week with those guys. So majority of my time was with Wayne, but I think the best coaches are man managers, and man managers understand that you've got to manage the person. It's got probably, I wouldn't say nothing to do with sport, but it's got very little to do with sport, because at the end of the day, in any sport, any workforce, really, you're there because you're good at what you do. But to get the best out of that person in that role, you've got to, attribute to all their needs, whether that's, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So you just need to look after them first and foremost as that human being and that person. And I think that's something that Wayne does really, really well, and that's how he gets the best out of people. And ultimately, that's I think that's what he drives that success off the field, so that it's easy to come to work or training or whatever you do and be the best version of yourself on the field as well.
Obviously, Darius, that's something you were able to do. I mean, your career is fantastic, right? You're a future all-star in terms of Hall of Famer. So what was it? I mean, did you have that internal drive prior to sort of getting that mentoring and coaching? Or do you feel like it's been a combination of learnt skill as well as that internal motivation that you had? Where does it come from for you to be, the elite performer that you were and continue to be?
Yeah, I think it definitely started from my childhood, to be totally honest. I think not having a lot of people around, a lot of people to mentors, father figures, siblings. Rugby league was really was my outlet, it was my goal, it was my passion. I got a lot of mateship. I had coaches who were mentors along the way. So I really believe that on one hand, while my childhood it wasn't easy at different stages, I really believe I probably wouldn't be had the career I had or sitting here today in such a good space without having some of those challenges, because it really put me on a really perfectionist type path, I guess, to succeeding. And obviously having Wayne and learning my craft over the years and of becoming a professional athlete, you get better and your goals change and move. And but I think that internal motivation was definitely there from a young age, and really carried that with me throughout my career.
Can I just finish that story? There's obviously other kids and young men who are coming through that program, right? And some of them, insanely talented, but not able to apply that same sort of level. Like again, coming back to your story, you developed, you took a single mindset. You said, if it is to be, it's up to me. When you did see some of those other professional athletes who weren't getting the best out of themselves, could you see that? Was that really evident? And what were some of your observations around that?
Yeah, definitely. I think you see it a lot, whether it's at the schoolboy level, the ones that they've been making rep teams since they were 15. They're the biggest, the strongest, fastest, and some of them never even play one NRL game. They never get to be a professional athlete. And then you see the guys that could never make a rep team all the years through school, never had a scout look at them, never had any scholarships, contracts to any NRL club, and they end up being some of the best to ever play the game. So I think that does, I think that comes down to mindset. And I think a lot of that, sometimes being the best kid growing up sometimes can be a disadvantage just because you're hand fed everything. You're always the biggest, the best kid. Sometimes they don't get the best coaching because just give him the ball and he'll, score 3 tries. The guys have to work hard, continuously working through their, junior football. They were never the best kid. They never made the rep teams. They've learnt resilience. They've had to bounce back. They've had challenges. I feel like they sometimes are set up the best because they have that internal motivation, and they're always wanting to be better. And I think on the flip side of that, it has its disadvantages too. Being a perfectionist, always wanting to be better, moving the goalpost, because then sometimes you're never happy. You never play for Australia and you want what's next, and then you captain your club. What's next? So you just got to find that balance. Perfection isn't achievable, obviously, but excellence is, and I think that's something that some of the best athletes have to deal with.
So you've recently retired, Darius, and as you look back at your career through the rear vision mirror, what do you? And I'm talking about opportunities that came your way. What do you reflect on where you go, yeah, I really nailed that? And if someone was to ask you, who's now just signed their first contract at 18, what would you say to them? Hey, these are the areas where I probably could have done a little bit differently. Do you have a view on where you did well and where you might have changed if you had your time over again?
Yeah, I think you're talking financially.
Yeah.
I think just getting someone in place and really wanting to learn more. I think I I did a few workshops through the club and a few things. They were great at getting, kids under, say, 22 to, there's mandatory, real estate workshops, financial workshops, all these different things to understand. And I had a bit of an interest, but at the same time, I probably wasn't fully invested. So any advice would be just to really try and take as much information as possible, and then really just surround yourself with a really good support team, whether that's someone in well-being, whether that's obviously mentors, whether that's financially, real estate, whoever you can find, but just people you can trust and count on, and people that are really influential in their field. I think is really beneficial, because young age these days is there's 18-year-olds getting paid $1 million in sport, so it's a lot of money for an 18-year-old, and most of them haven't had don't have the capacity or understanding to what do they do with it and how do they use that to their advantage. So if you have good people around you and people you can trust, they're going to help you make the best decisions.
We had Andrew Bogut on our podcast a little while back, and he was talking about when he got his contracts in the NBA, and they were obviously significant contracts there. It developed a challenge for him where, didn't know who to trust, right? Because you've got a million people all coming to you saying, hey, look, I'm the person that can help you. Did you face that sort of need to weed through who's giving the advice that's in the best interest for Darius versus them, or was that not something that you needed to be exposed to?
I think it's definitely something that pops up. Definitely, I think you're right on the money there. I think for me personally, I think I had a bit of a warped view on, I suppose, just life and friendships and mentors and trust. I think, just from my experience from my childhood, I felt like I didn't have a lot of people I could trust, because a lot of them weren't in my life for different reasons. So I actually probably worked in my advantage. I didn't trust a lot of people, so I didn't let a lot of people in. So it probably worked out in my favor. But then on the flip side, I guess I started to have to make decisions for myself, which at 18, 19, 20 probably wasn't knowledgeable enough to make those the right ones or the best ones. So it was a bit of a challenging situation. But like I said, I had Wayne, a few close people that I did trust, but I probably needed to find some more and really let them in and be vulnerable to seek help.
So Darius, in terms of that, I mean, we talked about the car purchase. May not have been the very best thing to do with your money at that time. Well, we get that. Don't worry, we've all got skeletons in our closet in terms of the right and wrong decision. Were there any other sort of really big ones that you did make? I mean, were you convinced on the next big fad, back in coming through ostrich farming, or what was the tree plantations to minimize tax, and these days it's crypto and all these other sort of stories? Was there anything that sort of caught your fancy that sort of got a bit more money than it should have and didn't really come home to roost?
No, not particularly. I think apart from probably went on a few off-season holidays, which I look back and I think holidays it's a hard one. I think you've got to have experience, and I think they're really important. Obviously, if you're spending stupid amounts of money and relative to what you're earning, obviously that's not beneficial. But if it's all within your means, I think that's okay. I think you really need to have a fine balance with experiences and memories and other things, and spending time, whether it's family or friends or whatnot. So advice. I think that's important. But no, I mean, I bought my first property down the Gold Coast. It was off the plan, actually, in Tugan. And I thought, I'm a Gold Coast kid originally, moved to Brisbane, didn't get a whole lot of help with that. And I thought, silly to me to think, but at a young age, I thought I'd probably move back there and live there when I'm retired, first ever property. And I ended up selling it 10 years later and basically sold it for the same price. So maybe $20,000 more, but obviously, that wasn't a good investment.
Stamp duty.
But obviously didn't make any money. But looking back, just not having that much help with that, I would have made a different decision there. Wouldn't have bought it off the plan. Wouldn't have bought probably a townhouse where there's 50 other ones exactly the same. But hindsight's a great thing. But it's something that I learned for the good, and one of my skeletons, as you say.
You, when we chatted on the phone, Darius, you mentioned that you and your wife, Kayla, are into renovating. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that looked like? What was the results? What got you started on doing that?
Yeah, we wanted to kind of build a home for ourselves. I don't know what got us thinking. That was 2016. We kind of started to think about that kind of plan. Maybe just because my wife doesn't mind the interior side of things, and really wanted to set ourselves up and have something we could call home. So we found a place in Hendra in Brisbane and bought it as an old character home. And then we come across a mate of a mate who was a builder. So we got them on board. Went to an architect, got a design going, and started that in 2016. Took about almost 12 months to come to finish point. So that was something that we kind of didn't really build to keep doing it. We kind of just built it for this is our home. We're going to spend time there, not to say forever, but for the next little period, I guess, whatever that looked like. We had our first child already as well. So that was amazing. And then when we finally finished the process, we really enjoyed the process. We loved it so much. We thought, why don't we really got the bug, I guess, and we wanted to do it again. So that's when kind of it started. We go, okay, well, let's look for something else. And we went on that process, and we've done 2 now, and in the process of probably looking to do another one.
And how involved in that are you? Because you said Kayla's got that touch with the interior design. Do you get involved in the decisions and the project management as well?
Yeah, I'm not handy at all, so I don't lift a finger as far as any of the trades are concerned. But yeah, I'm always, one of my favourite things. I mean, I used to probably won't embarrass you, Bryce, but I've seen you on TV a few times. I've watched a few of your shows over the years. My wife's friend was here the other day, and she bagged me because I had 9 Life on, because 9 Life has all the renovations and all the home and lifestyle show channel, I guess. So I have that on all the time. I'm always looking at realestate.com. I'm just really enjoy seeing renovations and seeing what different houses and styling can look like. So yeah, I'm pretty invested. I mean, my wife's the boss, so she has final say on things. But as far as layouts and what do we need? Do we need bedrooms, or do we need like a gentleman's study, or we need a media room, and these type of things? I like to have a fair bit of input. But end of the day, it's a bit of I like to think, I suppose, it's a bit of a two-way street, as far as you want to have the things that you need in there and it suits your family. At the same time, you always got to have, in my opinion, one view on, if you had to sell it tomorrow, could you still make money? And I think that's a good way to look at it. Build it to the way you need for your family, but at the same time, making sure that if anything went wrong, if you just change your mind, wanted to sell, that you could still, make some money out of it as well, not overcapitalizing.
In terms of the considerations around, real estate, tell us a bit about how much importance you put on location selection, and then how much importance you put on asset selection when you're thinking about how you might be able to improve the asset. So talk first about location selection. What are the things that you look for? And then, in terms of how you're thinking and improve the asset.
Yeah, we've always, I suppose, the last few years when we've probably made our best, property choices has always been as close to the city as you can possibly get, or and water, any water views or anything near the beach. Always, I think can't go wrong when you're where places where people want to be, and always will want to be for resale purposes, I guess. So that's the location, kind of something that we always look at. And then as far as renovations, I kind of just try and do a bit of research around what's selling in the area, what's sold, and similar block size, and what do I think looks similar as far as aesthetically and like bedroom size and square meterage of the house. Then kind of work backwards if that's what someone's asking for the land. Get a builder involved to see what do you think's a rough estimate for this size renovation or new build if it is, and then try to do numbers and see if they match up, and if they do, then it looks like it could be a good opportunity.
And Darius, I did note that I've just sent a text to the producers from Escape from the City. So clearly, you and your wife, I'll try and get you onto the show for that. But what role does property play in the future then for you as a vehicle for you to continue to invest in your wealth? You've given us a hint that you love renovations. You've given us the insight that there's been a couple, but does holding property long term into the future, does that form part of your thinking for wealth creation?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that we really think highly of for wealth creation, especially in Brisbane. I know the Olympics is coming in 2032, so there's a new casino being built. We finished next year. Cross River Rail, so all the infrastructure is going to go in Brisbane. I think it's only going to get bigger and better, and even through COVID, we've obviously seen a lot of people have decided can work from home. You can over Zoom and different ways you can work these days. So a lot of people have made the move north from Sydney and Melbourne. So I just think and the cost of living compared to those places is a lot cheaper here. So I just think it's a good opportunity in Southeast Queensland at the moment to be in the property market, and that's definitely something that we will continue to do for the foreseeable future.
And there's definitely plenty of demand even as we record now. But it's a shame about that Tugun one too, because you probably sounds like you bought in the decade where it was pretty flat on the Gold Coast, and then of the last couple of years, it's gone like a little bonanza. So that's probably one of those one that got away ones for you, because even though what you talked about, no off the plan, no 50 identical townhouses, even during the last little while, it would have done okay. So that's a bit of a shame for you.
Yeah.
Hey, can you tell us what the transition's been like from being a professional athlete? Again, in looking at your highlights package in preparation for this, you're in front of some large crowds. I'm sure there's a lot of adrenaline that goes with competing week in and week out. How did you go about the transition from that to no longer being week in, week out that professional athlete?
Yeah, I think I was planning for it for quite a while. So I knew that I'd put myself in a really good position. Doing a lot of work my last 3 or 4 years in particular, all my days off and around and off seasons, so that when rugby league did finish, I was already kind of doing what I wanted to do post retirement, which is predominantly in the mental health space. I do a lot of work in that mental health space. I'm really passionate about it. Something I really enjoy, get a lot out of. So that's something that I was doing for the Broncos and privately. And I'm, the other thing I think with that too, I've been very lucky that I still work at the Broncos. Got a couple of different roles there, one in coaching and one in the community space. So although I've retired, I went to work a week later after retirement at the same place, seeing the same people, having a coffee with people, and just not putting the boots on and not being as physically active and not playing the games on weekends. So not a lot really did change for me. I think that was a really key part of my transition, that I didn't, completely just cut ties on Friday and went to a new office job on Monday, and the whole realm was completely different. So I think that's something that really helped my transition. And the last thing I think too, which I think athletes quite struggle with these days, is social media. I don't have social media personally. That's just something that I've chosen not to have. It works really well for me, but everyone's different, and I've got nothing against it. But I think these days with athletes can really have a big profile on social media, which is a good thing. Can be negative as well. But I think when it comes to retirement and kind of transitioning, I think social media can be quite impactful, because I think you have this profile, you've built up this brand. So on one hand, you've got this brand and you still are part of that person, but on the other hand, you're not anymore. You've retired and you're moving on. And sometimes I think that connection can sometimes be harmful, more so mentally for the athlete. It's because, not to say you have to completely forget your past and your sporting achievements, but you've got to remember that was part of your life. You should be very proud of what you've achieved, and you can use some of those skills and memories to your advantage. At the same time, you do have to work on what's next, where you want to achieve, what's your achievements for your next opportunities. There's so much out there. There's such a big bad world out there, and most athletes retire in their early 30s, so you've got a lot longer to play to work than what you did in your sporting career. And I think that's sometimes a bit of a juggling act for athletes as well.
Darius, this is all great stuff. And I think, obviously it's very purposeful work. For our community, my last question to you is around, what are some of the things we can do for our mental health? Really, sort of simple things that everyone can potentially think about or do, that's going to put us in reasonably positive mindset shape as we, go through life and, all of the challenges that it presents us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really key, but really simple steps. I always talk about 5, and these are 5 that I've, learned and studied and worked on personally over a long period of time now. And the first one's gratitude. A lot of us, we're wired to always focus on negatives, think about the hardships, but we sometimes really rarely pat ourselves on the back for the things we do well. And just whether it's gratitude journaling, writing down in the book 3 things you're grateful for each and every day, or doing it once a week, whatever it may be, but just writing these things that you're grateful for in your life is just a constant reminder of all these things that you are very lucky and thankful to have. It might be family, it might be your job, it might be your kids, it could be a number of different things. So it could be your past footy career, sporting career. Empathy is another one. Compassion, just doing something for somebody else. We're all busy, we all work, we all have a lot of things, and times we're all time poor, but just doing something for somebody else, giving back, helping others, charitable giving, random acts of kindness, that doing something for somebody else gives you, as you said before, a bit of purpose and meaning in life. So that's really beneficial. Exercise, we take that for granted. But it's not just a physical, trait that works well, but it's really good for your mental health and well-being as well. And that could be, going for a swim at the beach, walking your dog, go and get a coffee, but going for a walk. So many different things you can do that way as well. Your support network's big as well. I think family, friends, relationships, having really good key people around you, people that pat you on the back when you're doing really, really well. But probably more importantly, people that can dust you off and give you some words of wisdom and advice when you're maybe going through a tough time or a bit of a challenge. And then the last one, always talk about mindfulness as well. So just being in the present moment, being in the here and now. So sometimes in life it gets busy and crazy, and we're going through a stress or a pressure, and we can't get that out of our mind. We can't be present. We're always focusing on that stress. So again, like listen to music, watching your favorite Netflix series, doing some yoga, breath work. There's so many different things you can do too. So there are a couple of those strategies, those tips. They're not something that takes you 3 hours. It doesn't take you a day to do. You can literally take you 5 minutes. A lot of those things to go and do. And the more you can build those up and have them in your daily and weekly routine, it's just a part of life. So that when these challenges do happen in life, it doesn't knock you for six. It just, you might have a bad hour or a bad 2 hours, but then you can, jump back on the horse and go again. I think that's something that the more we put these, protective factors around us, the better off we'll be.
Brilliant.
No, great list there. And my final question is again to Ben's point there that you are a big advocate in the mental health and wellbeing space, and you've got association with Blokes Foundation. So with the idea that you want to raise respectful young men, can you give us a little insight at a headline level what that is, how you achieve that work, and who that might be beneficial for?
Yeah, so it's a new program to me. They've been around in New South Wales for a little while. They've just come up to Queensland. So just going into schools and running workshops with young boys around relationships, anger management, well-being, just important things to remind young men that there's a lot of support and help out there, and giving them the best situations and best environments to shine and be the best version of themselves. So running mentor and workshop programs for kids through school, boys through schools, and then just having someone like myself, I guess, if they see you playing rugby league or you're on TV and they kind of recognize who you are, and you can share and talk about some of the challenges I might have had and faced, and how that doesn't define you, and you don't have to be stuck in that avenue. You can grow and do other things and change your life around or turn things around. It's just about perspective and mindset. And I think that's going to be best beneficial for them. And like we spoke about before, it's really humbling inside to be able to give back and help others and see a smile on kids' faces. And if I can do that, then it's beneficial for me also.
I've just thoroughly enjoyed the conversation with you, Darius. I think that one of the things that's really evident is you've got a really amazing CV from sporting achievements, but we haven't really talked about that today. We've talked about all the stuff that you've done outside of the sporting arena. And I think if you're a role model as a sportsman, clearly you're a role model to the broader society, but there's some people who get opportunities like you who don't necessarily do the path that you do, where you've clearly got some anchors, those 5 points you talked about. You actively prepared for your transition out of the bright lights of being front and center, and now it sounds like you're embracing that. And in your recent experience with SAS Australia, it sounds, I don't know if it was cathartic for you, but there was a whole bunch of transparency and authenticity that you provided, which was just no small audience to share that to, right? Which also models to other people that it's okay to be not having it all together, and to be human and fragile, and have all those sorts of things that people go, wow, he's got it. Oh, that gives me the confidence to actually say that I've got some of that stuff going on too, mate. So what a wonderful career you've had, but as importantly, what a wonderful role model that you're providing outside of the sporting arena to each and everyone. And maybe people like when you were 15, you would have liked someone like you to come along and give some of that advice as well. So well done, mate. It's a credit to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Outstanding, mate. Well done.
And on behalf of Ben and I, we want to say thank you for swinging by the Property Couch and sharing your story. So we appreciate that, and I'm sure our community got a lot out of that too. So thanks one and all for all of that, Darius. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Wow, Ben, that I think you and I both universally found it very difficult to not delve into the sporting side of things there. Yep. But there was so much to talk about with Darius, and feels like he's got a really balanced exit and plan for the future, which I found really, really great to hear.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I was writing some notes as we were talking, because I'm fascinated about the journey that he's been on. And, it's really clear to me that his success wasn't assured. Nothing came easy to him. He's obviously, in his childhood had some really difficult challenges, right? Never met his father, had a lot of people passing away in his younger years and his formative years. So to get over that and to basically be the shining light that he is, I mean, I could have spoken to Darius for hours, because it's very motivating when you can talk to someone who's centered, who's considered, who's thoughtful, but is also practicing what they preach. So he's been really a shining light for someone so far, and still quite young compared to us, who's getting the best out of himself. And that's all you can ask of people, right? They're the mooring lines that he's had, the limiting beliefs that may have come up, and he's been able to overcome those. And I think that's a really powerful message, and something that I, always want to share to people about moving away from those negative belief systems, moving towards positive belief systems, thinking in abundance, thinking about contribution. So I couldn't, thank you, Darius. That's all I can say. I was, really, really very delighted to meet him.
Great property backstory too. Good to hear some of those highlights from there. But those 5 things that he talked about, including gratitude and empathy and mindfulness and a couple of others, were just wonderful. So, and a shout out to Tom Simons, Ben. Thank you. I was chatting to Tom and said, hey, listen, always interested in chatting to people who want to showcase their stories, and he connected me with Darius, which was wonderful. So I appreciate that from you too, Tom. But mate, awesome. But so I guess I think there's a bit in that for everyone. It's not just if you're like for you and me mortals. We're not a professional athlete, and last time I looked, that'll never happen for you or me. But
maybe darts.
Well, yeah, good point. But so people who aren't professional athletes can relate to the messaging that there was there as well. So thank you, Darius. Appreciate that. Hey, my life hack today, Ben, and I'm on a mission to find out how I can use my iWatch, or as you mocked me last time, the Apple Watch a little bit better. So I don't know if you've ever tried. Do you ever need multiple timers on your iPhone? You can't do that because you go, I've got to put well, this is for me, put the timer on so that I've got to turn the bath off so it doesn't overflow. But at the same time, I've got to get something out of the oven. And then I think, oh, damn, my timer's being used, right? So on your watch, you can actually do multiple timers. Did you know that, Ben?
No.
So you click the side button. Let's do this while you're doing it. And can you see the picture there that looks like a timer? So on mine, it's orange. So on the little icon, you push the timer.
Is it a clock?
No, the clock's the old analog one that you got to be the one next to it, which is the timer.
Oh, yeah, got it. Mine's not next, but yeah,
I know most of the people on audio are going, oh, come on, fellas. And then there's a few that you can choose. There's some standard templates: 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute. The usual standard ones. So you click one of those, and the timer starts. Right. You done that?
I went into the other one, which was the countdown clock. That's orange as well. So 3 orange clocks. It's a bit confusing. Okay,
so choose one of the timers, and then there's a back button. So you go to the back button, and then you scroll down, and then you just choose another timer. And all of a sudden, you got 2 of them running, mate. So when one goes off, bang, turn the bath off, doesn't overflow. And then the second one goes off, you pull the chips out of the oven so they don't burn.
So you see, I probably wouldn't be running the bath or getting anything out of the oven. That's not being sexist or anything like that. I'm just sort of saying it's not necessarily what I spend most of my time doing. But what I probably would use this for is when I've got Jack in the bad corner and Harry in another bad corner. Just kidding. Just setting that up for a bit of a joke.
My case study was just one of those, mate. But I'm sure people have got plenty of case studies, right? So, but there you go for you Apple Watch users. For the rest of you, go, come on, folks. I know, but I'm just trying.
Yeah, he's trying to get a free Apple Watch, everyone. He's trying to get an Apple sponsorship.
Trying to get a free iWatch. So there you go. Hey, Ben, what's making property news?
Well, we did promise that this is probably one of the most important updates that I've done, and I do sincerely believe that this is the case. The 50 basis points move was a lot higher than most had anticipated, especially after the 25 basis points move that we saw from the RBA board the month before. We're talking Glenn Stevens. Glenn Stevens.
Mate,
Phillip.
Rewind.
Oh my God, I know. Dr. Lowe was on 7:30 earlier in the week. He talked about inflation getting to up to 7%, and he was signalling that the cash rate could move to a more normalised level of 2 to 2.5%. Oh, that's a big signalling that he's putting out into the marketplace because of this inflation story that's getting a little bit out of control. And he thinks it's going to be around 7% by the end of the year. Now, here's the big piece, because we'll do a special on this later, in a month's time or so, I reckon. But what I want to talk about is the impact on what you need to do now. Okay, so community listening who has a mortgage, what am I telling you about? What does this impact mean? So as a rule of thumb, and it's really important to understand this, that for every 25% increase, borrowing power usually drops by 2 to 3%, right? So put that into context. For every 25 basis points, now we've already moved 75 from our historic low of 0.1 of 1%. So we've now got cash rate at 0.85, right? So we're now basically seeing, so that has resulted in effectively reductions of around 9 to 10% in borrowing power already, and we're only at 0.85. Now, Governor Lowe, Phillip Lowe is signalling.
Just say Glenn.
All right.
Yeah.
Now
we know who you're talking about.
I've just merged them both into one because I thought they were both
Glenn Lowe. Let's just call him Glenn Lowe.
So Dr. Phillip Lowe.
Now you're second guessing.
Now I'm second guessing myself. He's signalling that higher level. Now, so that's effectively saying that if the cash rate moves up to that level, we're talking about reducing borrowing power by 30% from where it is today. They are big numbers. In addition to that, we're seeing that the HEM, which is the Henderson Expenditure Measurement, so that's the one that the HEM that measures household expenditure movements, that is also going up because cost of living going up because of inflation. So we're getting a double whammy here on borrowing power. Now, why is that important for anyone? Well, it's really simple. It's important because if you also want to refinance to potentially a cheaper deal, you don't want to be in a situation where you can't borrow as much because interest rates have gone to a level, so you can't even refinance to a cheaper rate. That's concerning. So if we know that by the middle of next year, the cash rate might be at 2.5%, or the end of next year, you have only got a window where, most economists at the big banks are basically talking about the cash rate being around 1.5 to 1.75 by the end of this year. So we're talking about a 10% fall to 15% fall, maybe even 20% fall for some lenders in borrowing power. So that's material, people. Now, overlay that with the story around where property prices are historically at their highest point. If you also want to get cash out to take advantage of opportunities, you also need to be acting now. You also need to be thinking about getting back to your bank, getting to your investment savvy broker, and getting that property valued and releasing that equity and parking that for the land of opportunity that's coming, because it is coming. And that's what we're going to be talking about in a month or so's time. We will start to talk about this land of opportunity, this land of buying opportunity for those people who are in a fortunate position to do that. So all I'm trying to get this message across is you have been forewarned, people. The community, you have been forewarned. Talk to your investment savvy mortgage broker. If you don't have one, talk to our team. I'll put our little hat on and say, reach out to us on our website and book a review with our mortgage brokers, right? Get the numbers crunched for you to see what's possible for you, all right? Because there's money either to be saved in refinancing, or there's, as we would say, it's basically going to turn into an opportunity of buying time. That's where it's also a great chance to get that top valuation that you need now to release that equity. And if you've got gainful employment, or if you've moved careers and you've got a higher income, that shouldn't bother you. And it shouldn't bother most of the people that we talk to in terms of rates normalising. They're just going back to where we said they would go back to from the emergency lows. And so it's also going to be a pretty fantastic buying time in the months ahead. So there you go, Bryce. Everyone has been forewarned. Don't put it off. Get in contact with your broker and see what options you have available for yourself.
And gets perspective too, Ben. 0.85 as recently as sort of May, June 2019, it was 1.5. So it's not even, it's like there's recent history we've been here, right?
Yeah, so that's right. We're coming back off emergency settings. And look, I think that, we will talk more about, I thought, Governor Lowe having that chat. Who? Got it right. I got it right that time. Yeah. To double check. I looked up to double check.
I did see that.
So it was, there's obviously go to iView. listen to that entire recording. I think it's important for those people who want to take an interest in this stuff to be informed, and that's where we're heading. We've said that, and I said a couple of months ago that right through the boom period, we weren't telling everyone, you've got to jump in, now's the time. The market was doing all the heavy lifting at that time. We always talk about the winter periods as being opportunistic periods. For those who are in, don't worry, you're in for the cycles. Everything's going to be okay. This is a long-term investment strategy.
Yeah, long-term. The message is clear. Now is a great time to be buying the assets that you want to be holding.
Correct.
Because competition is diminishing, which is
Correct.
great. So come and get the ones that you're going to be holding in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, 20 years' time, because now is a great time to pick up all those wonderful assets. And
there's some census data that's going to be released really soon, Bryce, and that's going to tell us a bit of the story about where incomes have gone in certain locations. Now, what I've always been fearful of in closing out this segment is if borrowing power and interest rates and the amount of your income to pay your mortgage gets into that 40 plus range, and it has in some capital city locations, then this story is a very, very poor story for future valuations for those properties, right? So where the market has got ahead of itself, whether it's been through investors coming in into really small markets and pushing up the values too high because they were chasing yield, this is basically where, again, we see them swimming naked, because as these interest rates go up and the actual local economy can't produce those high income jobs, people are going to tap out, and they're going to tap out and tap out. And so whilst they might have seen record growth and performance over the last 5 to 10 years, we're going to basically see whether the market can sustain that level of growth or whether that market got ahead of themselves. And I think everyone knows the market that I'm talking about in Tasmania.
All right, you're here, heard it here first. So folks, been a big show, Ben. Very special guest. We've finished that off with some really good insights for people. So thanks for that with your What's Making Property News segment today, mate. But big show next week. Winter Series starts. Until next week, Ben.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
Very well said. See you next week, folks.
Hey guys, Bryce here again. Just want to catch you before you go and let you know, if you're new to our community, there are a lot of episodes to catch up on, but it's really important that you start from the very beginning at episode number 1, because episode 1 through to 20 share all of the foundational pillars and frameworks that you need to know to get the best out of listening to this podcast. So I'd recommend that you start there, and the little tip is to maybe start on 1.5 speed. Now, for those of you that are time poor and don't have time to go back from the beginning, don't worry, we've got you covered as well, because we've created a binge guide that goes through all of the details and makes it easy for you to read and get up to speed very, very quickly. So if you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, you will be able to download that binge guide and you will be up to speed in no time. And whilst you're there, I've got a few extra goodies for you, because we have our top 5 frameworks that you'll learn on this podcast, as well as the Make Money Simple Again ebook, which will help you with the foundations of basic money management, so you'll have everything you need to succeed in building your own lifestyle design and getting the best out of this podcast. Now, just a reminder that anything that we cover on this podcast is not considered financial advice. We certainly recommend that you get your unique circumstances looked at by your individual advisor, and everything we talk about is just general in nature. But folks, I want to encourage you again to go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, and you can go and get all those goodies and catch up right away.